Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you don't know me already, my name is Evangelina Rattray. I'm a 16-year-old author, and in today's video, basically I'm just gonna be giving you guys my biggest pieces of writing advice that I haven't already shared that I really think you guys could benefit from, especially if you are just about to start writing a book or you've recently started. These are things that I feel like I would want to know before I wrote my first book. Let's get started. For your writing, if you want to pursue this in the future and you want to, become a writer, you want to publish your books, you want to do all this stuff, make sure you actually want to do it. I feel like it's so obvious, but some people go into it and they're like, oh, it looks good on college applications if I wrote a book as my passion project, or I can say, oh, I wrote a book, oh, I'm an author, or because you may think it's an easy profession or it's something that doesn't really take a lot to do. But in reality, it's really hard. And I'm not saying this because I wrote a book and I'm like, oh, you can't write a book because I'm just so much smarter than you. No, it actually is hard. It takes so much discipline, so much knowledge, so much willingness to learn. You have to want to get to know your story, the elements. You have to learn things to create a well-rounded story, unless you're just writing about stuff that you've already experienced, but I will touch on that a little bit later. And it does take up so much of your time, so make sure you love writing. Well, maybe you're not sure if you like writing or not, but if you are writing a book and you're like, I really don't want to do this, I feel forced, I feel like I don't want to do this anymore, don't. You don't need to write a book, okay? You're putting yourself through stuff that you don't need to do. It's not going to benefit you that much more if you write a book, and it's not going to be that good if you don't want to do it. And your readers can tell if you don't want to write your book. They will read it and they'll be like, oh, I don't think they really care about this. Why am I reading this if they aren't trying to be true to themselves? It's kind of like DNFing books. You don't be afraid to scrap a book, not finish it while you're reading it if you don't like it, because why are you doing that? It's entertainment. Durr window. There are other things out there for you to do if you don't like writing, but if you don't like it, don't put yourself through it. There's no point. Perfection is stupid. It doesn't even exist, but it's just frustrating. And I went through this too, where you just are writing and writing and writing and you're like, I don't feel like this is good enough, but it is. And if it wasn't, you don't have to worry about it because you can fix that later, or you can deal with that after you've written your book. But while you're writing, if you're just thinking, oh, I have to fix this later, or you're like, oh, I need to fix it now, you're never going to get through your book because you're always so focused on making everything perfect. So pause. You don't have to create the best book to ever be written. If you want to, yeah, you can work up to that, but you don't need to do that right now. You just need to write the story that you want to write. You just need to have fun. You need to be consistent. You need to do what you gotta do, but you don't have to be perfect because nobody is. And if you're telling yourself that you're gonna be perfect, you're setting yourself up for failure, so I don't recommend that. This kind of goes back to the last question. If you're writing just because you want to create a perfect book and you want to be like, oh, I'm the best author to ever exist, don't write a book, girl. Don't write a book. That's not a good motivation to have, because then you're just going to be disappointed in yourself at the end. So relate your story to your own life. And I know that might sound a little unreasonable if you're not writing realistic fiction, contemporary, literally anything that doesn't involve you directly. But when you include little parts of yourself, parts of your personality that you think could add more depth to a character, whether they're good or bad, doesn't really matter. You can add certain experiences you've had, even if it was just going to the library when you were a kid, you can put that in a book. You can add that to a backstory. You can literally do anything, and it makes your characters way more real because you're speaking from your experience, so it's already accurate, and you don't have to worry about, oh, is this right? Oh, is this wrong? And that's the perfectionist thing again. That's just something that can be laid back, and you can really have fun writing it because you can relive your experiences. I mean, if they're not good, you probably don't want to do that, but you can also heal from writing about your own experiences and so many different things. I feel like whenever I include my own things, I'll put, oh, my character loves driving or something. That's oh, that's me. That's how you know I wrote it, because I like driving. Or oh, she likes reading. she loves romances. That's me. That's cute. You can always connect yourself back to it, make it a lot more personal and make it a lot more like yourself. And I feel like your readers can tell. They can just be like, oh, that felt really real. I wonder why. Because they lived it. Durr.
I just said that because it rhymed. Durr.
So yeah, I really like that part of, you know, writing yourself into your stories. You can also have like a self-insert character. These aren't always good because sometimes when you're putting yourself in a story, you don't want to include any of the flaws that you might have, and everybody has flaws, so I'm not dissing you. I did this and it's not that she didn't have flaws, but there are a lot of things to me that just couldn't fit in a 300-page book. I had a lot of things in my book that I felt like were very true to myself. Like my main character was literally me in like another person's body. It was actually insane when I was reading over that like months after I had written it, and I was like, oh girl, there's a lot to unpack here, because I was kind of just including stuff that I just wanted to talk about because I kept it bottled up. And that's so good to write about that, to talk about that. But at the end of the day, that was like bad because I had so many plot holes. I would just be like, oh, this happened to me one time, and then just never discuss it again in the rest of the book, and that was not good. So if you can find a balance between new stuff and yourself, that like will definitely help to create a more well-rounded character. Make sure your characters change. I don't care if it's huge, like, oh, they're a psychopath and now they're like the most loving person ever, or if it was just like, oh, they liked this guy at the beginning and then they hated him for this reason. No matter what, it's change, but your readers want to see change. Otherwise, it's just a flat character, static character, flat plotline, whatever, and it's not fun. Like, you want all those elements of plot, right? And that's kind of easy to do. Like, the conflict, the rising action, that's so easy to curate in your story. But you need to make sure your character also has that for themselves. Like, they need to be able to have a mental shift along with those events in your story. Otherwise, it's kind of just like, oh, she went to fight in a war and then she came back home and everything was fine, but she didn't really care. It was kind of just like everything went back to normal. No, like when you go to war, like you're gonna be changed forever, so our mindset should be different, you know? Or if it's like the small thing, like, oh, she hated the guy, it could be you found out that he killed someone or something, and now you're like, ooh, that's icky, and now I'm gonna be more skeptical of people before I decide that I have a crush on them, because they could literally be anyone. It's just like those things. You really want your character to be a new person, because that's the whole reason we tell stories. And you're not gonna be like, oh, I walked around the mall yesterday, but I didn't buy anything. Like, nothing changes. You just went there and you basically just did nothing. That's really boring, and it'll leave your readers feeling unsatisfied. It'll leave you feeling unsatisfied after you've written it, because you'll be like, oh, what did I really get out of that? Do I really think this is gonna like make a difference? Not that much. And you don't need your side characters to change, mainly just your primary character. Like, they are the most important. So if you need to base your entire conflict around their internal change, that's okay. Like, okay, that's actually good. That's actually fun.
A shout out to everybody with social anxiety. I kind of feel sorry for you. Oh, yeah.
That's kind of what my book is like. It's more focused on the internal, like, mental health and just everything of the main character, and just like a little bit less of the side characters, because one, it's less to worry about. Two, it's super relatable because it's basically just everything inside, everything about being in your certain age group, or everything about being in your community and stuff. And it doesn't have to be a huge change. It doesn't have to be like a environmental change or a relationship change, just something, because that's just what keeps it moving. My final piece of advice is to imagine your story in your head while you're writing. And I know this kind of sounds like a little silly, because when you're writing, like, the story isn't there, so like you can imagine it while you're reading. Well, some people can't, which is kind of upsetting, and I'm not going to get into that right now. I feel bad for you if you can't. When you're writing, it's super important to feel like you're in the story, especially if you're writing first person, because you need to be like, oh, I'm experiencing this, this, and this, and this. So if you're writing a scene that's like, super emotional, you can't write emotion if you're not feeling it. Like, you have to be able to put yourself in your character's shoes. That's super easy to do when you can feel like you're there. The biggest thing I do while I write my books is I make playlists or just listen to music that reminds me of like the overall vibe of the book. Doesn't mean the songs have to mean anything related to your book, but like you want them to feel like it, so while you're listening to it you're like, oh, and then you're writing it and it's like, oh, I'm literally here. So yeah. Another way to do this is to make Pinterest boards. You can, because you literally just find pictures that look like your story, and then you can have those in your brain and you can use those as a way to visualize in your head while you're writing. And yeah, it's just like a movie, you know? If I'm just writing and it just looks like words on like a blank page, that's not something I want to do. Like, I want to be able to be in my story. I want my readers to be in my story, bro. If you can't visualize it, they're not going to be able to. So yeah, make those Pinterest boards, make those playlists, literally do anything. It doesn't really matter as long as you can see it. So yeah, those were my 5 pieces of writing advice. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really like talking to you guys about advice because I like giving these examples and connecting, and yeah. So let me know if you have any more video ideas in the comments, as always. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Also, happy 2025. This is my first video this year. See you guys next time.